Smoke rolled across the shattered plains of Meridian 9, turning the red dusk into a blood-stained haze. The wind carried the metallic tang of plasma burns and the bitter smell of carbonized soil. The war had ended everywhere except here. The Galactic Legion's armored battalions combed to the last human outposts. Convinced they had crushed Earth's resistance once and for all, they laughed in their metallic voices, mocking the stubborn few who still clung to ruins. They didn't know that somewhere beyond the ridge, a single scope watched them, patient, unblinking, waiting. Sergeant Daniel Ross lay prone in the dust, his cloak of adaptive mesh flickering with the fading heat signatures of the battlefield. His heartbeat was steady, his breath controlled, his hands motionless on the long, black rifle that had become an extension of his soul. The Galactic soldiers called themselves gods of war, invincible behind their shimmering shields and photon cannons. Daniel had seen their arrogance burn cities, rip through families, and leave humanity's pride in ashes. Yet here he was, the last sniper of the 7th Terran Recon, silent proof that not all fires had died. He adjusted his scope, the glass cracked but still serviceable. Through it he saw them, a squad of 12 legionaries moving in formation, luminous armor glinting like molten silver under the twin suns. They strutted through the wreckage, dragging human corpses into piles for counting. Their commander, tall and almost regal in his gleaming exosuit, barked orders in that guttural alien dialect that always sounded like contempt. Daniel couldn't understand the words, but the tone was enough. They were mocking, laughing at the fallen, scoffing at how easily humanity had been broken. His jaw tightened. He whispered into the wind, "You shouldn't have laughed." His finger brushed the rifle's trigger, not pulling yet, just feeling the familiar curve, remembering the dozens of times that touch had meant justice. The sniper rifle was ancient by galactic standards, a relic of human engineering, firing kinetic rounds instead of plasma bolts. They called it primitive. They called it obsolete. Daniel called it personal. Before him, the world stretched silent and endless. In that silence, his memories crept in, his daughter's laughter echoing through the garden on Earth before the skies burned, his wife's voice telling him to come back safe, his squad mates who never made it out of the last evacuation run. He had promised them vengeance, not out of hate, but out of remembrance, because the dead deserved a witness. Through the scope, he saw the commander pause, his reflective visor turning toward the ridge as though sensing something. Daniel didn't flinch. He had learned long ago that victory belonged to those who waited longer than fear could last. A flicker of movement, one soldier raised a severed human dog tag, shaking it mockingly. Laughter echoed across the plain, hollow and cruel. Daniel's lips barely moved as he exhaled, the rifle whispering in response. The first shot cut through the air like a sigh. A split second later, the lead soldier's helmet shattered, a plume of blue ichor painting the sand. Confusion rippled through the squad. They barked orders, raising shields, scanning the ridges with scanners too advanced to pick up a ghost who'd learned to vanish between heartbeats. Daniel didn't move. The barrel of his rifle cooled, then warmed again as he lined up another shot. The second kill was cleaner, straight through the chest plate, penetrating the alien's power core. The explosion was small but bright, throwing sparks that illuminated the other's panic. He could almost hear their disbelief. How could a human weapon pierce their armor? How could a single man defy the gods of war? He adjusted again, counting the rhythm of their steps, watching them form a defensive ring. Good soldiers, disciplined, but predictable. His breath synced with the wind. Another shot, another fall. The laughter had stopped now, replaced by shouted orders and the sharp hum of scanners sweeping the horizon. Daniel's expression didn't change. He was part of the dust, part of the silence. Every movement, every thought, every breath was the same calm mantra. One shot, one soul, one memory honored. As the fourth alien dropped, the commander finally realized it wasn't luck. It was judgment. Plasma bolts scorched the ridge, carving molten scars into the rocks. But Daniel was already moving, crawling through the ash like a shadow. His cloak absorbed the heat, masking his trail. He reached a new position. Checked the magazine. 2 rounds left. Not enough to win a war, but enough to remind him humanity hadn't forgotten how to fight. He thought of the old Marine creed his father taught him. Not about glory, Not about conquest, but about standing your ground when everything else falls. That was what they never understood. Humanity's strength wasn't in technology. It was in endurance, in the quiet fire that refused to die. The commander's voice boomed again, mocking even in fear. He was daring the sniper to show himself, taunting the invisible. Daniel smiled faintly. "You want to see me?" he whispered. He shifted the scope, found the commander's chest plate, and waited for the wind to still. The twin suns dipped lower, painting the sky crimson. For a moment, time held its breath. Then came the final exhale. The trigger broke, clean and quiet. The shot punched through light, through arrogance, through everything they believed made them untouchable. The commander staggered, his armor flickering like a dying star, before collapsing. The other soldiers froze. None dared to move. The ridge was silent again, the dust settling around an invisible ghost who had already melted away. Daniel rose slowly, slinging the rifle across his back. The plains were quiet now, the laughter gone, the night reclaiming what arrogance had disturbed. He whispered softly, not to the aliens, but to the memories that kept them alive. "For Earth," he said, before vanishing into the smoke. And far away, under the cold stars, the galactic comms began to buzz. Whispers of a phantom sniper who killed gods and disappeared like mist. The legend had just begun. Night bled into horizon as the twin suns sank, leaving the world bathed in cold starlight. The battlefield slept uneasy beneath its blanket of ash and twisted metal, but the silence wasn't peace. It was a pause between storms. Daniel Ross crouched beneath a crumbling overpass, his body trembling with exhaustion. He refused to acknowledge. The rifle rested across his knees, its barrel blackened with soot. Around him, the ghosts of his kills lingered. Faint blue glows where the alien blood still shimmered against the sand. He had been a soldier long enough to know that victory never came without a cost. The cost this time was his humanity slowly eroding, replaced by the mechanical calm of survival. He activated his comm link, a battered piece of tech patched together with copper wire and hope. Static hissed for a moment before a familiar voice cracked through, a woman, tired but alive. "Echo 1, this is Haven. Reading your signal. Please confirm. Over." Daniel exhaled softly, his lips twitching into the faintest ghost of a smile. "This is Echo 1, he whispered, still breathing. On the other end, Lieutenant Marin Hale's relief was tangible. She was the last officer in what remained of the Terran resistance, commanding a ragged group of survivors hiding deep underground. Marin and Daniel had fought together once, back when humanity still had cities, flags, and hope. "We picked up your signal near Meridian," she said. "You stirred up a hornet's nest, Ross. Legion reinforcements are moving your way. You need to exfiltrate before dawn." Daniel leaned his head back against the concrete, eyes closing. "Can't," he murmured. "They'll trace me to you. Someone has to keep their eyes elsewhere." There was silence on the line, a heavy pause that carried all the unspoken things they'd never had time to say. When she finally replied, her voice was softer, almost breaking. "You can't fight them alone forever." "Forever's not the goal," Daniel said quietly. "Just long enough." He cut the link before she could argue, knowing she would. He couldn't afford distraction, not when every minute of his life bought someone else another chance. He cleaned his rifle methodically, his fingers steady despite the fatigue gnawing at him. Around him, the night hummed with the low vibrations of Legion drones sweeping the area, their searchlights slicing through the dark like silent predators. He blended into the shadows, cloak flickering with the environment's light signature. Every muscle in his body screamed to rest, but he stayed still, patient as stone. A faint rumble in the distance made him look up. Through the cracked lens of his scope, he spotted them, a convoy of armored transports grinding across the horizon, escorting something massive in the center. It looked like a mobile fortress, its hull covered in pulsating symbols. The Galactic Legion's insignia burned across its front in cold white light. Daniel's pulse slowed, controlled. The aliens didn't just want to find the sniper now. They wanted to make an example of him. He observed the movement, noting formation, timing, guard rotation. Old habits returned. The sniper's mind dissecting patterns, weaknesses, breathing spaces in their armor. He was outnumbered, outgunned, and out of time. But that had been true since the war began. What mattered was precision. What mattered was meaning. He adjusted the rifle, whispering to it like an old friend. One last hunt. As the convoy drew closer, Daniel's eyes caught movement beside him. A faint shimmer in the air, like heat distortion. He froze. Then the shimmer solidified, and for the first time since the invasion began, he saw another human. A young boy, maybe 17, his clothes torn and face smudged with dirt. He looked terrified but determined. "You're him," the boy whispered. "The ghost sniper." Daniel's rifle lowered slightly, surprise flickering behind his calm eyes. "You shouldn't be here," he said flatly. "I followed your signal," the boy replied. I want to help." The older man studied him, noting the trembling hands gripping a small energy pistol, the cracked lens of his visor, the raw courage of someone too young to understand the full weight of war. Daniel shook his head. "Helping me means dying beside me." "Then so be it," the boy said, voice shaking but firm. "They killed my family. I won't run anymore." For a moment, Daniel saw himself reflected in the boy's defiance. A memory of who he used to be before loss turned him into a weapon. Something inside him shifted just a little. He handed the boy a small comm relay and pointed toward a nearby ridge. "You want to help? Mark their drone frequencies. Stay low, stay silent. You see me fall, you run." "Understood." The boy nodded, swallowing hard. "Understood." As the convoy approached the valley below, Daniel's focus sharpened into something cold and absolute. Through the scope, he saw the alien soldiers moving with mechanical precision. He counted heartbeats, gauged the wind. When the first transport entered the kill zone, he fired. The bullet tore through the vehicle's energy core, and the explosion lit up the night like sunrise. The boy flinched but held his ground, feeding Daniel intel through whispers. More shots followed, precise, surgical, devastating. The Legion's response was swift, beams of plasma raking across the ridges, setting fire to the rock. Daniel and the boy ducked for cover as debris rained around them. The aliens began deploying seekers, drones that tracked heat signatures and sound. Daniel's cloak flickered under the strain, its battery near depletion. He looked toward the boy, terrified but alive, and knew there was no way both of them would make it out. He turned the comm to the boy. "Listen carefully," he said, voice calm even as the sky burned. "There's a tunnel beneath this ridge that leads east. Follow it. Don't stop until you reach the beacon. Tell Marin humanity still breathes." "What about you?" the boy asked, voice breaking. Daniel reloaded his last magazine. "Me? I've got work to finish." As the seekers closed in, he rose from his cover, cloak slipping away like a shadow shedding its skin. The alien floodlights found him, outlining his silhouette against the inferno. He stood tall, the rifle steady in his hands. For the first time, the Galactic Legion saw the face of the ghost they mocked. Weary, scarred, human. And then, before fear could become understanding, the sniper fired again. The shot cracked through the night, the beginning of an end none of them would forget. The night screamed with fire and fury. Plasma bolts scorched the ridge where Daniel stood, melting stone and tearing through air heavy with dust. Each blast illuminated him for a heartbeat, a silhouette of defiance against the storm. The Galactic soldiers advanced in formation, their armor glowing like fragments of fallen stars, their weapons spitting light into the darkness. Daniel moved between shadows, his cloak long since burned away, every breath measured, every step deliberate. He was no longer fighting to live. He was fighting to remind the universe that humanity didn't kneel quietly. His rifle's magazine was half empty. He reloaded in silence, fingers working by instinct, muscles trembling but precise. His vision blurred from smoke and exhaustion, but his purpose was crystalline. Through his cracked scope, he saw the alien commander, not the same one he killed before, but another, larger, bearing the insignia of vengeance. The creature's armor shimmered with energy, its face hidden behind a silver mask that reflected the firelight. It pointed toward him, roaring something guttural that the translator in Daniel's helmet barely processed. "Human ghost. Surrender. Mercy is extinct." Daniel almost smiled. "So, is your arrogance," he murmured. He fired. The bullet ricocheted off the commander's shield, the impact flaring in blue sparks. The alien surged forward, a tide of living metal. Daniel rolled behind a boulder as plasma erupted around him. Shards of molten rock sliced across his shoulder, tearing fabric and flesh. Pain bloomed hot and deep, but he stayed quiet. Pain meant he was still alive. He reached for a smoke charge from his belt, his last one, and hurled it toward the advancing line. Thick gray mist billowed, swallowing the aliens in confusion. In that haze, Daniel moved like a ghost. He dropped to one knee, aimed low, and fired 3 controlled shots. The sound of ruptured armor echoed through the smoke. Then came silence, followed by the frantic whine of scanners trying to track him. His rifle clicked. Empty. He reached for another mag and found none. A strange calm settled over him, almost peaceful. The war for him was ending here. He had known at the moment he sent the boy away. From a valley below, the alien fortress loomed, massive, alive with shifting energy. Through the rising smoke, he could see the fortress's central power core pulsing like a heart. If he could take that out, even in death, it would cripple the Legion's operations in this sector. He looked down at the small detonator strapped to his wrist. It wasn't much, just a field-rigged explosive pack meant for demolitions, enough to bring down a section of the ridge, or, if placed right, something far greater. He began to move again, crawling through the debris, keeping low as the fog thinned. His mind wandered a fragment of memory that rose unbidden, his daughter's laughter chasing bubbles under a blue sky, the scent of home after rain, the warmth of his wife's hands when she told him to fight for something greater than revenge. Those memories had once hurt him like open wounds. Now, they felt like armor. A voice crackled suddenly through his comm, faint, trembling. "Echo 1, this is Haven. We picked up the boy. He made it." Daniel froze. A breath escaped him, soft as prayer. "Good," he whispered. "Daniel." Marin's voice came again, strained with static. "You have to pull back. We can send a drone for extraction." "No," he interrupted gently. "No drones. They'd see it coming. Save your people. Marin, tell them we weren't animals in cages. Tell them we stood our ground." There was silence, then a quiet sob she tried to hide. "Godspeed, Sergeant." He turned off the comm and rose to his feet, gripping the rifle by its barrel now. Use it as a crutch more than a weapon. The fortress pulsed brighter as he neared, the heat from its shields baking his skin. His armor's cooling system had long failed, but he pressed on. The Galactic soldiers saw him, one lone human staggering across the ruins, and for a brief moment, even they hesitated. The commander stepped forward, towering, his weapon humming with lethal energy. "You are alone," he declared. Daniel met his gaze, eyes calm, steady. "That's the funny thing about humans," he said quietly. "We never really are." The commander aimed his cannon, but Daniel was already moving. He dove behind a fallen support beam, planted the charge against the conduit, and activated the timer. 5 seconds. He turned back toward the alien, who was charging now, roaring with rage. Daniel raised his empty rifle as if it were still loaded, sighted down the scope one last time, and whispered, "For Earth." The explosion split the night. A pillar of light erupted from the fortress's core, tearing through armor, metal, and sky. The shock wave hurled Daniel backward, fire swallowing everything in gold and crimson. For an instant, he saw the stars above, cold, endless, and watching, and then the light consumed him. When the smoke cleared, the ridge was gone. The fortress lay in ruin, its power source obliterated. The Galactic soldiers who survived stumbled in disarray, their communications failing, their command shattered. From orbit, their fleet detected the loss and withdrew, uncertain and shaken. The myth of their invincibility had cracked. Far away, beneath the mountains, Marin and the surviving humans watched the sky burn from their hidden bunker. The boy stood beside her, clutching the comm relay Daniel had given him. "Was it him?" he asked. Marin nodded, eyes glistening. "He did it." The boy looked up at the fading streaks of fire in the heavens. "Then he wasn't just a ghost," he whispered. "He was a warning." And in the weeks that followed, Stories spread across the outer colonies. Stories of the sniper who stood alone against gods and brought them down with human grit and mortal resolve. The Galactic Legion called him the Shadow of Earth. Humans called him something simpler: hope. In the end, Daniel Ross became what every soldier dreams of being. Not remembered for how he died, but for what he made others believe was still possible. His legend crossed the stars, whispered in the dark corners of occupied worlds, reminding everyone that the human spirit doesn't fade. It endures, it fights, and even in silence, it speaks louder than fear. And somewhere beneath the dust and ruin of Meridian 9, the wind carried the faintest echo, the whisper of a rifle shot, fading into eternity.